And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with. I'm going to recap the NFL Week 5 action, get you a little preview into Week 6 for your fantasy football rosters. In order to do so, joined by a special guest this week. You can find him on FNTSY Radio, on Fighting Chance Fantasy, and on Twitter at FantasyTaz. Jim Day. Jim, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for joining me. Definitely looking forward to it. Got to do a couple drafts with you this year, and I know the Fighting Chance boys very well, so good to have you aboard. Really good.
Cool. Yeah, they're good guys over there. Ryan and Steve do a heck of a job, and it's just fun to work with.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's just get right into it. It was a hectic Week 5, crazy Week 5. We'll try to hit on all the main topics at hand here, but we'll kick it off with the Thursday night action. The Colts, they tried to hang in with the Patriots. It wasn't happening. But kind of one of the big takeaways that I noticed is Eric Ebron continues to be just an absolute target monster. He likes to drop a couple passes in time, but he's a target monster. And until Doyle comes back, he looks like it's his gig. How much are you believing in Ebron the rest of the way, or is it only while Doyle's out?
No, I like him. He's not going to get the targets he's getting while Doyle's out. But even when Doyle comes back, he's still going to be a part of this offense. Look, the wide receiver core on that team is definitely not what you would consider top of the line. Ebron has his faults, like the occasional drop pass, but he still gives them big play potential. And he scored even when in the beginning of the season, even when Doyle was in there, he was the one getting the goal line looks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. On the New England side of things, we saw Sony Michel have another great game, got the rock a ton. And then James White basically is a wide receiver one almost in that offense, the way things are going these days. Edelman's back. But when we're just looking at the running back landscape with just a two-headed monster for once, do you feel safe running both out in all formats?
Pretty much. I definitely prefer Sony Michel in the standard format because he's not really going to catch a lot of passes, and he's going to be touchdown dependent in standard. Otherwise he's you're looking at 8 and 9 points on a good week. So it's going to be hard for him to really put up points in a PPR league. But he's getting touches right now, which a lot of these running backs you can't say that about.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's pretty impressive what's going on there in New England as they continue to gain steam after that slow start for many. Let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. They had a rough weekend up in the Northeast in Buffalo, New York. Not quite the outcome we all hoped for after watching the Titans offense blow up the week before. Mariota was abysmal. The Titan running back situation is a mess. How do you assess this situation? Because we all had high hopes of like Corey Davis and Tywan Taylor, many, many other targets there, and then it just lays a complete egg in a great matchup.
Well, Buffalo, while being the laughing stock of the league so far in the year, except when they beat Minnesota, is a pretty tough defense, especially at home. Last week we saw Corey Davis go up against Varian White most of that game, and he just shut him down, which is, pretty much what I expected. White is one of the better covered cornerbacks in the league, and right now he's pretty much shutting down everybody he faces. So I have no problem with that. It's a 1 week, aberration. Hopefully I expect Corey Davis to bounce back a little bit. I'm still not sold that he's a wide receiver one yet at this stage in his career, but he's their best option. So he's going to continue to get a lot of chances in this offense.
What are you doing with their running back situation right now? Because Derrick Henry, unless he gets probably 20-plus touches, doesn't seem to do anything. And even, out of the backfield in the passing game, we thought there'd be options there, and it's just not happening. So what are we seeing there at Tennessee's running backs?
Well, Henry is pretty much a done deal. I mean, he's not doing anything, like you said. He hasn't had one single game yet with over 6 points, 6 fantasy points. So he's not helping you at all. I hate to say drop what is considered a starting running back, but he is probably as close to droppable as anybody I could tell. Dion Lewis, while he's not having the year that a lot of people thought he would, especially after that great first week, but he's still a number 22nd running back in PPR. So, still solidly at the bottom of that RB2 ladder, what you're looking at there. So he's going to have some bigger games. He's going to have some smaller games, but at least as the pass catching back, he's going to have options.
Okay. Yeah, Dion Lewis was the only one I kind of cared about, but it's a mess right now. Mariota's, not doing it. It's a mess in Tennessee. I'd be curious to see how they bounce back. Maybe it's just like you said, tough defense, tough environment. Go from there. Let's go to Green Bay, where they pulled off, or they lost by 8 to Detroit, thanks to a great kicking game by Mason Crosby, an outstanding kicking game. But Rodgers continues to play well. A couple questions I have for you first. Do we ever believe that McCarthy's actually going to realize Aaron Jones is a good running back, or should we just move on from the situation?
Well, look, it's more Aaron Jones' fault than it is McCarthy's at this point. Aaron Jones, while being the best running back on the team, is not a good running back for protecting his quarterback. And that while you have Aaron Rodgers, who's not 100%, and you have to really protect him, that's going to limit his time on the field. And that's exactly what we're seeing. He can't get enough time on the field because Jamal Williams is so much better at picking up the blitz, reading defenses, all the things that you need a running back to do that Aaron Jones has not learned yet.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the new toys he had, because Cobb and Allison were out this week, and we know how well they fit into this high-powered offense. Devontae Adams got the good to go on Sunday, and he had a great game, as you'd expect. But Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Ekmus St. Brown got their feet wet in the Aaron Rodgers offense this week. Brown actually had 5 targets and 3 catches. Scantling had 10 targets, 7 for 68 and a touchdown. He had a hell of a game. What are we looking like waiver wire wise? Because both those guys should be out there. You'd imagine Allison comes back soon. Cobb's injury could linger. Who knows? How do you look at these new toys for Rodgers in a high-powered offense?
Well, I do believe Allison will be back this week. I mean, you don't normally miss more than 10 days for a concussion unless it's a really bad one. His didn't really look that bad when it happened, but you really don't know. So we have to watch the practice reports this week, the injury reports, see what they have to say. But Equanimus St. Brown, I mean, he really is a total flyer. Like I said, he had 5 targets, which was nice, but 3 for 89. Hard to count on that each and every week, especially once Allison is back. Valdez-Scantling gives them a bit more of a deep threat. So it's going to be interesting to see which one of these guys they try and fit into that slot if Cobb misses more weeks. Got to have to see that, because that's going to be the big play there.
Yeah, it's kind of how I felt on it. Is I play a lot of DFS with my season long, and everyone was saying it's a must play. It's a must play, and like we've seen Aaron Rodgers so many times, you never really know until he gets in a rhythm with a guy where he's going to go. Like you could have great talent. Heck, Allison was out there a lot last year, and it was towards the end of the year where he finally, got the trust of Aaron Rodgers. It's just how Rodgers rolls, and it looks like it was Scantling last week. Brown got some. I'm curious. I wouldn't be shocked if this week it switched. You never know with Rodgers, but I think it's MSV's kind of job to lose. If you had to break it down, like what percentage of fab would you go on Scantling? Because he's gonna be a popular discussion topic this week.
Let's see. That's okay. I'm going to base it on the fact that I expect Allison to come back. So at that point, I'm only going to be looking at putting like 7-8% of my fab on Scantling. With Allison back, I think that really limits him going forward.
No, I like that. I'm glad you answered it that way, because I'm trying to tell people that ask me questions, don't overpay for this 1 week. Just don't do it yet. Next year he could be a staple in the offense, and it's great, but not this year. Let's go to Jacksonville. Leonard Fournette has already been declared out for week 6. I'm thinking this injury is going to – I told some people I wouldn't be shocked. He's probably going to come back this year, but after what we've already seen and how his injuries are and that soft tissue injury, I think they're going to be extra careful with him, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's a handful of weeks here. TJ Yeldon's crushing it. Would you, at this point in time, buy, sell, or hold TJ Yeldon?
Look, I said, 2 great weeks in a row. He's looked, like you said, there's a good chance he gets a starting job for another 3-4 weeks at least. But I think right now is a perfect time to sell Yeldon. Look, once Fournette comes back, whenever it is, they're going to give the job back to Fournette, or at least a 50-50 shot at the very least, which is going to end up killing the value of both of these guys. While you got Yeldon high right now, people are chomping at the bit to get those running backs. Go out and see if you can get a really good deal on Yeldon. And I'm not saying, sell him cheap. Go out and look for the stars at this point. He's coming off 2 back-to-back weeks that most of these running backs haven't seen all year. So I would absolutely say if you want to shop him, go out and shop him, but look for something big.
Okay. Look for someone that maybe had Jay Ajayi and needs some help.
Exactly.
What was that?
There's a lot of choices.
There's
a lot of guys. be down.
There's a ton in the running back world. It's ugly. I was doing my waiver wire options on my leagues earlier today. And I was just scratching my head, going, "This is not pretty." And it's only week 6. Let's talk the New York Jets, a guy that I was high on in draft season. I know a lot of people were, and really never got it going. And this last week, Sam Darnold decided he could throw it past, the 15, 20 yards down the field. And Robby Anderson, lo and behold, is always sitting in, 40 yards down the field. So he had a big game, 3 catches, but over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's what you expect when you have a guy like Robby Anderson. He's on a lot of waiver wires. Are you willing to go out and get him and believe this is kind of a thing we can see, or is this just a 1 week wonder?
No, I'm hoping anyway that this is the beginning of some kind of trust that Darnold knows he can go out and throw the ball to Anderson, even if he's in a one-on-one tight situation. Let Anderson go up and fight for the ball. The one thing I found out this week was that Anunwa's hand was having an issue, and they actually had some kind of brace on his hand. And if you saw the game, the 2 balls that were thrown to him literally clanked right off his hands. So if that brace or his hand isn't strong enough to catch the ball, we ended up him seeing no receptions in this game, then I think Anderson has got to be their next big play. They really don't have anybody else that can really do a lot of damage. Terrell Pryor, maybe a little bit here and there, but Robby Anderson might just be the next guy up.
Yeah, no, I like that. The Inouye thing was tilting because he's been having success week in and week out, and they said he was banged up, but he was good to go. They never mentioned a brace. No beat reporter mentioned a brace, nothing. And then the game starts and you see, oh, he's wearing a brace. This is great. Absolutely outstanding. So, that beat reporter strike again. But I'm with you, Robby Anderson. Very excited about that. Let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still waiting on Le'Veon Bell to get traded is my guess now, because I find it hard to believe he's going to be welcomed back in that locker room anytime soon. And after what James Conner did this last weekend, it's making it tougher and tougher to want him back. Yes, Le'Veon Bell's a great player. I'm not taking that away from him. But, James Conner, big week one.
He's already done something that Le'Veon Bell's never done.
What was that?
He's had 2 games so far in the season with over 100 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Le'Veon Bell has never done that twice in any season. And as a matter of fact, he's only done it 3 times in his entire career.
That's outstanding. I saw a tweet today. I want to say it was Heath Cummings, but it could have been somebody else. And I apologize for getting it wrong. They tweeted out Lev Bell's first 5 games last year and Connor's first 5 this year. Connor has more yards, like 3 more touchdowns, more receiving yards as well, and like 25% fewer touches. Like, he's really, really getting it done, which is pretty interesting to see.
Well, they really got him more involved this week. The week before, they didn't really get him involved at all. And they said they had to get him involved, and they actually followed through. You got to love when they actually do what they say they're going to do.
Oh, don't get us involved in coach speak. Looking at you, Marvin Lewis.
I'm looking at all of them.
They're the worst. The worst. You almost have to just
there's a coach's controversy against fantasy football.
I think so. I think Belichick started it with this, injury report. Now they've all just run with it. But with the Steelers, like you said, Connor goes off this week. Big week 1, big week 5, kind of wishy-washy in the middle. Kind of what do we expect from James Conner? Are you trying to sell him now? Because I think even if Lev somehow comes back, he's still going to have a huge role in this offense, because it's going to be a dynamic offense. So you can't just give him away. But are you trying to sell him, or are you just keep riding the wave?
Yeah, if I'm holding Bell, then obviously I want to keep him. If I'm not holding Bell, then I'm looking to move him. Because once Bell does come back, Connor's having a great start to the season, but I can't say he's better than Le'Veon Bell. I just can't. Le'Veon Bell is by far the better running back. And if Pittsburgh gets themselves back into contention, that big win this week definitely helped. If they get themselves back into contention, they're going to want the guy on the field that can win them the game. And that's Le'Veon Bell. So that's really going to hurt Connor. He'll still get some touches, but it's not going to be the lion's share like he's getting now. And his value is really going to tank. So I'm telling people now, if you don't own Bell but own Connor, sell Bell now and look high. Again, coming off a great game, you should be able to get a lot for him.
Definitely. That is a trend this week. There's a lot of big running backs you can wheel and deal for right now. The tight end situation, Jesse James again now has a week after we just got excited about Vance McDonald. Do you trust anything in that situation?
No, not even a little bit.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's really going to come down to Ben's going to hit the guy that's open whenever he's open, whoever it is, and he doesn't care.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter. And, it's going to go back and forth each week, just enough to make you pull out your hair.
No doubt about it. Let's go to Atlanta, the Pittsburgh's opponent this past week, who kind of laid an egg on us. But Mohamed Sanu had another huge week, third straight week of over 7 targets, playing a ton out of the slot as Ridley and Jones take the outsides and getting just super production out of him. He's available in a lot of leagues still. Is this one of your must-adds of the week, or are you thinking eventually teams are going to catch on? Because he seems like he's locked in right now.
Hey, I told people to pick him up last week. Look, Sanu is Ryan's safety blanket. He's the guy he's looking for on third down. He's looking every time he's moving out of the pocket. That's who he's looking for because he knows where he's going to be able to find him. Ridley was the big play guy, but he's still getting out-snapped and out-targeted by both Sanu and Julio Jones. Julio Jones got this bug on his back about not being able to score, almost like there's a wall at the 1-yard line that he just can't cross for whatever reason. But people, don't buy into the Julio's done thing. It's all crap. The man is still playing amazing. Don't go by just a week or two of what his numbers are. He's still close to 600 yards through 5 weeks. He's having a great season. He's just not getting in the end zone, which is what we saw last year. 1,400 yards, only 3 touchdowns. I can live with 1,400 yards at 3 touchdowns. I really can.
Yep, no doubt about it, especially in our Roto League. That'll be okay.
Hey, I can't believe I'm doing so well in that Roto League. I've never played in the Roto League before.
Yeah, neither am I, and it shows by where I'm in the standings. But it's a learning experience. But with Julio, it's crazy because if you look at all the receiver stats, receptions, yards, everything, he's like leading the way or near in the top 3 or 4 in every category. And then you get to touchdowns. It's just deflating. But, yes, he's still great. Like you said, the panic is like, sure, okay, trade him to me for 75 cents on the dollar. I'll take it. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're panicking that much, I'll take him in a heartbeat.
He's absolutely a buy candidate for me if somebody's willing to sell right now.
Let's talk about a receiver in Carolina, DJ Moore, rookie receiver. People are really high on him out of the draft. Really never got going, but they said during their bye week they're going to incorporate him more in the offense. And look at this. He got a little bit more production this past week in Carolina. It was still kind of a weird game flow for Carolina compared to what it was in previous weeks. But are you thinking maybe this is them actually going to get DJ Moore involved? Because he's a big-time weapon they could use.
He is a big-time weapon, but unfortunately, he was still 4th in percentage of snaps for the wide receivers. Torrey Smith played 46 snaps. He only played 29, DJ Moore. Torrey Smith, are you kidding me? How could you have Torrey Smith on the field that much? And you got this young guy who's chomping at the bit, sitting on the sidelines, not doing it. He was still 5th in targets. It was better. It was good to see him get those 4 targets, no doubt about it. Want to see him more involved. But right now, he's still low on that pecking order and really hard to believe that you could trust him in any given week.
Okay, talking about trust. I already mentioned his name earlier, but Marvin Lewis says Joe Mixon's going to get eased back into the offense. Joe Mixon got like over 20 touches and had a humongous fantasy football Sunday. For those that benched him, send your questions to Cincinnati, not to us. But are you trusting this knee? Because it scares the crap out of me when a guy has a knee procedure 2 weeks ago, but he's got the role there. No one's going to stop him.
Yeah, no, it really depends on the knee procedure, that they do. There's so many different ones. The arthroscopic ones really don't take much to come back from, and that's what he was looking at. And we saw that. I mean, he had 25 touches in this game, over 93 rushing yards, 22 receiving yards. So, not really nice game. Got to score through the air. Got to love to see that. I love that they're really getting him more involved in the passing game, too. There's a chance Gio Bernard is going to be back soon. So he'll bite into it a little bit. But Mixon is still their main guy, and he showed this week why.
Yeah, Mixon's a stud. Even when Gio was there, like you said, early in the season, he got his, and it wasn't an issue at all. In their tight end position, CJ Uzomah, he looks to be the guy because now Tyler Kroft looks like he might be hurt as well. And he already was getting like 70+% of the snaps and everything at the tight end position. But now with Kroft even out of the picture now, Uzomah's out there everywhere, and the tight end position is absolutely disgusting right now. Is this somebody worth taking a flyer on? Because this Bengals offense I've talked about on other shows is way more higher powered than I think many expected this year.
No, I agree. And he's definitely worth the fly. Like you said, tight end position just sucks this year. Everybody just not getting it done except for the top two, Kelsey and Ertz. Even Gronk isn't getting it done so far. I expect that to change with Gronk. I'm a big Gronk guy, so I expect that to turn around for him. No doubt. I think it actually starts this week. Got a great matchup this week. But, look, Uzuma, if you're out there scrambling, I would take Uzuma over guys like Ricky Seals Jones, guys like that. Austin Safarian Jenkins is now gone, so there's plenty of guys that, people were thinking would be better and not getting it done. Uzuma, take the shot, especially with Croft out of there now. They'll have to go to him. Dalton likes to throw to his tight end, always has.
Definitely. The Raiders let us down in what should have been a shootout in LA. And Amari Cooper, 1 catch for 10 yards. We've come to expect duds from Amari Cooper, but he's actually had a couple good games this year, and then he just completely does this after every one of them. For those that are still trying to play Amari Cooper, do you have any words of advice for them?
Okay, well, first of all, I will tell you a couple things about Amari Cooper. First of all, over his career, in 60% of his games, he doesn't even finish the week as a wide receiver 2. He finishes outside in 60% of his games. Second of all, he seems to love the even number weeks and hate the odd number weeks. That's why he's had 3 bad games and 2 good games, both on even number weeks. This is an even number week. But last week it was really telling because, he just had a terrible matchup. And I'm drawing a complete blank right now. Give me 1 second. I had the name written down. I can't find it. Oh, man, I'm sorry, guys. Oh, yeah, right. This past week, he went up against Casey Hayward. And if you look back at the two of them, they've played together quite often. Every time he's faced Casey Hayward is completely shut him down. It's not even close. 1-2 catches at the most in every single game. So, anytime he goes up against Casey Hayward, you can't expect him to do anything. And people need to know that.
So are you telling me with this being week 6, we should trust Cooper again?
He actually has a pretty decent matchup this week. Yeah, I actually think if you're going to run with him, this is the week to do it.
Okay, yeah, he does have a very good matchup. So the Raiders might bounce back and surprise a lot of people this week for sure. Let's go to Philadelphia. Jay Ajayi. We already were worried about his messed up back. Now he goes and tears his ACL, not on purpose, obviously, but tears his ACL. So he's out for the year. Clement's a little banged up, but he's still going to be coming back, if not this week. He's supposed to be back this week in full force. And you got Wendell Smallwood, who's been playing really well in his roles. If you're going out there on the waiver wire this week, how are you approaching Smallwood and Clement?
I'm not. I'm letting other people approach him. Now there's rumors out there that the Eagles are actually trying to get McCoy, which would make all the sense in the world for Buffalo because he's doing nothing for them, costing them a lot of money. Might as well try and get rid of him now for something. Philly could absolutely use him, and he could blow up in Philly. And then anything you spend on Smallwood and Clement is going to go through the wayside. Let's face it, even Clement, even if he gets a job, as soon as Sproles comes back, he's going to lose it again because they like Sproles. They trust Sproles more. So, it's a really tough situation. If you're already sitting on one of these guys, I'm telling you right now is the perfect time to try and sell them.
Oh, yeah. People will sell very high for them. I've heard on other shows and articles, people recommending 30 to 40% of their fab budgets on some of these guys. So, yeah, you can get a nice killing on these. Yeah, it's especially because for me, it's not like they're going to be the every down guy. Philadelphia always uses 2 running backs. They always split the load no matter who it is.
And you never know. One week it's going to be Wendell Smallwood. The other week it's going to be Clement. It's going to be game script oriented. If they get ahead, then Smallwood's got a better chance. If they're playing from behind, then it's going to be Clement. It's just going to be another one of those timeshares that you really don't want any part of if you don't have to.
It reminds me of a very bad New England backfield.
Not now. Not finally.
Well, not now. No, not now.
Years, we got a New England backfield we can like.
Yes, I love it now. Absolutely love it. I'm sorry, Rex Burkhead, but thank you.
Which one of these two guys is going to get hurt and screw it up for us now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. After all this talk. Talking about another running back that's finally woke up the last 2 weeks, not thanks to the play calling, I think more just thanks to situations. But David Johnson's had back-to-back really good fantasy weeks, shows little signs of life. The play calling is still atrocious. Watching last week's game was just mind-numbing to what they were doing. But are you believing in what David Johnson's doing yet, or are you just thinking it's a set of circumstances?
Oh, no, it's David Johnson. He's going to get it done. Everybody's crying and screaming about how bad he is, but he's had over 16 PPR points in 4 out of 5 games so far. Last 2, he's had over 20. He's still the number 10 running back in PPR leagues on the season so far. So people are absolutely overreacting. And you know what? That's a great thing. If people are overreacting, go out and grab David Johnson now. Sell him. Go out and use whatever you have to do to get him, even 2 or 3 for 1. David Johnson will absolutely return value.
Yeah, I was telling people that a couple weeks ago. I said, go get David Johnson. Why people hate him. It's going to be so worth it in the end because he'll get his because eventually the head coach will realize they don't want to get fired right away. So they're going to realize how to win games is get David Johnson the football.
Yeah, especially with Fitzgerald's hurting and not really looking like Fitzgerald of old. Mm-hmm. Johnson is their offense. They got to realize they need to get the ball in his hands no matter what.
And speaking of the other parts of the offense there, Josh Rosen has looked okay. He's a rookie. He's going to have some issues, but he's extending the field. He's doing things we obviously weren't going to get with Sam Bradford. And Christian Kirk's getting a big recipient of this. Christian Kirk is available on a ton of waiver wires right now. How do you look at Kirk going forward with Rosen in the offense?
Yeah, the one good thing about this is that during preseason and early in the season, during practice and everything, Rosen and Kirk were probably the 2 hooking up the most in practice because they were running on the second and third teams and running together. So they were probably getting a lot of practice time together. And I think that's why we're seeing a little bump from Kirk in this one. They went out this week and got Kendall Wright. So all of a sudden this team has 3 slot receivers and nobody for the outside. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
It seems very smart. And we'll keep running David Johnson up the middle. Yeah. They're going to be stacking 12 in the box because they don't have to go outside. This will be great. But maybe they'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's go to the Niners. Matt Breida for the 3rd straight week has to get kind of limited playing time or taken out of the game because of an injury. They really should sit him this week if they're smart, but they'll probably run him out again.
I don't think they're going to have a choice. I think he's going to miss a couple of weeks. Some people are saying up to 4 weeks. They said it wasn't a full high ankle sprain, but they said it was a mid to high ankle sprain. You don't come back from that in 1 week. Never.
It was nasty, especially at the running back position. You're not doing that. So to ask some questions, Alf Morris will get a bigger workload. Kyle Juszczyk has been a PPR machine. He's got over 4 targets in 3 or 4 games. Last week had 6 catches for over 70 yards. Do you have any desire to take a gamble on Kyle Juszczyk?
I would actually take a gamble on Juszczyk before I take a gamble on either of the Philadelphia running backs. Look, let's face it. Juszczyk is a pass catching fullback. So he can catch those passes. He's shown that his entire career. And now he's playing with a quarterback that loves to check down to those running backs. With Breida out of there, Alfred Morris is not really a threat to catch a lot of passes. Juszczyk is going to get he's going to get a lot of that like James White type of role where he's not going to do much in the running game, but he's going to get you the 6-7 catches a game in this one. Even if they're for short yardage, you're still looking at most likely double-digit scores each week.
I was about to say is no matter how great the production is, he's probably good for 10-plus points PPR-wise in the next few weeks, no problem. So I think it's a great play. Like you said, is we've seen it going with the way Beathard likes to throw the ball. He just dumps and dumps and dumps. So especially with Garcon, he played through injuries last week, and you got Goodwin banged up. He's got no one else to catch the darn football besides Kittle.
And Trent Taylor showed up a little bit last week. He had 7 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown. I think he becomes a little bit more in play just because they have nobody else. Their entire starting offense is now hurt.
Yeah, because Dante Pettis is out, and he might come back soon, but I think he's kind of going to get overlapped by Taylor. I like Pettis quite a bit as a rookie, but he might have to earn his stripes back. Taylor is going to be available in a ton of wires, and he looks really good with the options, and we just both said it. There's no one else out there. Do you look at a guy like Taylor and say, okay, I can give this a look?
Absolutely, I will. There's a lot of wide receivers I actually like on the waiver wire this week, and Taylor's definitely one of them. Just because he's the next man up, he's got to have to get targets. He's going to have to get receptions based on that alone.
Let's talk about another guy that kind of came out of nowhere last weekend for the Seattle Seahawks. David Moore had 2 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett's still the guy there. I don't want to talk about the Doug Baldwin week because that was depressing as all hell could be. Really bad. But David Moore had a big game. Was this kind of a fluke thing, or is this, we could look into? We could, approach him like a Robby Anderson, like a Trent Taylor as a waiver wire option.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to to believe somebody who has 3 catches and 2 of them are scores, that this is something you can count on from week to week. More than likely, most times you're going to get 3 catches for that 38 yards with no scores attached to them, especially once defenses start realizing they're targeting him in the red zone. Then they'll start to put some extra attention on him. I think that dries up. He's not really somebody I'm ready to put a lot of money on this week.
All right, we already talked about, guys like Uzomah as a tight end option in the nasty landscape. Nick Vanette's the guy there now. We thought he would be before, but he wasn't. Disley was there. Now Vanette's the guy, and he actually got some nice target work this last week. Are you jumping on the Nick Vannett wagon?
Again, 3 for 43. He only had 4 targets. He did play a high percentage of the snaps, so absolutely. I think that continues, but I'm not sure. I don't know if it's Russell Wilson not trusting him as much as he seemed to trust Disley early in the season, but it doesn't seem to me like he's really looking Vanette's way unless he has absolutely no choice.
Let's talk about the Seahawks backfield. Chris Carson has played very well when he's on the field the last few weeks, but so has Mike Davis, and Pete Carroll's made it a point to say Mike Davis needs to be a part of this offense. Both guys are on most waiver wires, maybe not as much Carson. How do you approach this backfield? Because we've already talked committees suck.
Yeah, they do suck. But, I think right now what Seattle's trying to do is establish the run a lot. They're really pushing it. I mean, Carson ended up with 116 yards last week, 6.1 yards per carry, which was nice. Not much of a receiving threat. We've seen that. Davis, still ended up with 68 yards and a touchdown with a 5.7 yards per carry clip, and he caught 2 targets for 7 yards. Not great numbers, but definitely numbers that get you involved. These are 2 guys going forward that I think both have fantasy relevance.
Yeah, I agree. If you had to pick just one, which one would you rather have?
Oh, I think I'd rather have Carson. He's still seeing, more snaps than Davis is at this point. I want to see if that touchdown is going to be something that is going forward, being consistent, that Davis becomes that goal line back. At that point, it might change. But the one thing we do know about this backfield now is that Rashad Penny is done.
Yeah, wow.
He only played 1 snap, and that was on special teams.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy that out of nowhere, gone. As second-round draft pick, just gone.
Well, he showed up to camp 16 pounds overweight, looked like hell in preseason. That'll do it to a rookie every time.
Yep. Back to the bus, boy. Let's talk about tight ends. The tight ends. This is how ugly it is, guys. Tight end situation in Dallas. Geoff Swaim has actually started to garner a little attention the last few weeks there in Dallas. A little, to be kind, a little. But they have no receiving threats in Dallas. So is this another one of those kind of, if you have to, tight ends?
Well, over the last 3 games, Swaim is actually the number 9 tight end on the season. That's how bad it's gotten. He scored 9.7 points, 12.9 points, and 8.5 points in those 3 games. That's how bad it's gotten for tight ends this year. But he's gotten 15 targets over those 3 games. Not really somebody you could trust yet, but at this point, like you said, with all these other tight ends that we thought were having good seasons, being out, being injured, or just not producing, if you have to take a flyer on him, he's a guy that's out there. And like you said, the wide receiver core in Dallas is not the greatest. Neither is their quarterback.
Swaim, Vanette, or Uzomah. Who rank those 3 for me, please?
I'd take Uzomah first. I'd take Swaim second and Vanette third. Okay. Uzomah early in the season, before Eifert was really into shape and ready to play, it seemed like they were going to Uzomah a lot early in the season. And then, when Eifert went down, I expected, Uzomah to get more work last week. Didn't really pan out, but neither did the Cincy offense. Early in the game, they didn't get anybody involved. It wasn't until late that they came back, and they did that a lot on Joe Mixon's back.
Yeah, very true. I like it. And Dalton does like his tight ends. Something to definitely keep an eye on there. Let's go to Houston, where, Hopkins was playing, Fuller was playing, and Keke Coutee was playing, and he got a lot of reps, a lot of targets for the second straight week. He seems to have Deshaun Watson's eye. Are you thinking this is going to continue, or are you still worried that Fuller and Hopkins take too much of the workload?
Well, you got to be a little concerned, but 2 nice weeks in a row. Like you said, last week, week 4, he had 15 targets. Last week, it was dropped down to 7, but he still caught 6 of them for 51 yards and a touchdown. Nice day, no matter how you cut it. Um, you know, I think right now, I think he's got a comfortable floor with no running game in Houston at all. Lamar Miller, was out last week, but Alfred Blue didn't do nothing. Lamar Miller didn't do anything before that. There might be hope on the future with Deontay Foreman possibly coming back in week 7. But until that happens, they have no running game whatsoever. So they're lining Coutee up all over the field in ways trying to get him the ball, which makes him a valuable play. And if he's still on your waiver wire, he is somebody I would pay a little up for.
Yeah, I grabbed him in a lot of places last week. You mentioned Deontay Foreman, who should be back hopefully week 7, and the struggles they've had there. You've mentioned. Are you going and trying to stash him now?
I have already stashed him now, and I've told people that listen to me to stash him. Absolutely. If he's still there now is absolutely the time. You don't want to wait till week 7 and try and grab him then, because everybody will be on top of him. You have to do it beforehand.
Yep, definitely. I've done that with a couple of guys. We'll talk about one here in a minute. But the Redskins last night, not good at all. They got stormed by the Saints. And AP dislocates his shoulder. He's already expected to play on Sunday. Chris Thompson got banged up at the end. Capri Bibbs got a touchdown. If AP and Thompson are out, do you look at Bibbs as a viable option this week?
Oh, I'm not sure I'm ready to. Yeah, but I guess, man, that's a tough one.
I'm not. I'll put it that way. I'm not.
It's really hard to trust Capri Bibbs. Carolina's pretty tough run defense. 10th in the league in PPR points allowed to running backs, and that's half the damage is in the passing for them. They've given up 2 passing touchdowns to running back, only 2 on the ground. So I don't really think highly of Capri Bibbs this week. That offense has really been great game script oriented when it comes to the running backs. If they're in the game or Washington ahead, then it's going to be Peterson. If they're behind, then it's Chris Thompson all the way, and the other one pretty much falls out of it. Last night, we just saw them get steamrolled by the Drew Brees train because of all the hype surrounding Drew Brees getting the new records and just everything in that stadium just being on Drew Brees, and you had to expect him having a big game and rolling over this Washington team.
Yep, he trucked him. And a big piece of that was Tre'Quan Smith. Had a huge preseason. People loved him out of the draft, dynasty prospect, all the good talks there. Everyone said it. Ted Ginn's out. He fills in. He plays the Ted Ginn role. Like, not going to get a ton of catches, but he gets big catches for big touchdowns. Is this a guy you're looking at going forward, or are you just going to sit back because Ginn should be back after the bye week?
Yeah, Ginn is supposed to be back after the bye week, and once he does, he's going to go right back in there. Tre'Quan Smith is going to have a couple of other good games throughout the season on a couple of big plays here and there, but he's not going to be somebody you can count on as long as Ginn is in the lineup.
Let's talk about Cam Meredith, who did have a good game, and each week he slowly gets more accustomed to the playbook, and he's a better game after a better game after a better game. Nothing huge, but he's been very productive. And it seems to be getting better. Are you buying into Cam Meredith being potentially like a wide receiver 3 in this offense?
I'm thinking more, a wide receiver 3 in the heavy bye weeks than a full wide receiver 3 every week yet. He did, catch all 5 of his targets for 71 yards in this one. I still expect him to see more than that. He's just not. But again, we also saw Michael Thomas do nothing in this game. Again, another bad week for Michael Thomas. So, it's just the way the game flow worked out. Tre'Quan Smith got the 2 touchdowns, really took the ball out of the other's hands when they got the big lead. They didn't really need to put the ball in the air a lot.
Can you echo my sentiments here and tell all Kamara owners to step away from the ledge? It'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a thought for you. And I mentioned this on my Frenzy show today. There's a good shot because it really looked like they were putting Mark Ingram front and center in that game last night. And there's a good chance they did that for the sole purpose of seeing if they could put him up for a trade. He's a free agent, 2019, not expected to re-sign with the Saints. So maybe they're trying to see if they can get anything for him now. And, for all those people who are really freaking out about Kamara, if that happens, then Kamara goes right back to that 20-touch guy we've been loving in the first few weeks of the season.
I think that's definitely an option. Look at Philadelphia as a possible suitor. I think that's an option. I've heard also, Kamara was a little banged up. Bye week coming up, we'll take it easy with them. When you looked at total touches, yes, Ingram had more, but it wasn't by as much as it seemed like when you're just watching the game. It could be a lot of things. The trade one's very interesting because it makes a lot of business sense. It actually makes a ton of sense. So that'll be one to definitely keep an eye on.
And people, people say, "Oh no, Saints need Ingram," and it may be their last Super Bowl run with Breeze, and they need Ingram. But you know what? While that may be true, and that's the way we think, business thinks totally different, and the game is still a business.
Yep, if they can trade him for a draft pick or two or something, they will do that in a heartbeat. So definitely something to think about there. Tampa Bay was on a bye last week. They come back, and I just want to bring this up right now because Ronald Jones is finally active, and he led the team in touches at the running back position. This is a hot topic. I know I picked him up that Sunday morning when they said he was active on a lot of wires that he's available, and my leagues were pissed that I did that. But I'm like, hey, I was there. You weren't. Not my problem. But what's your thoughts on Ronald Jones? Because it looks like they might finally be passing the torch to him at the running back position.
Yeah, but the problem was he's probably going to fumble the torch. He looked terrible in preseason. There was a reason he was a healthy scratch through 3 games. The only reason he's active now is because Peyton Barber looked like crap. Didn't do a damn thing. Didn't open up anything for them. And why not give the young kid a chance? Maybe he proves it now. Maybe he's one of those guys that doesn't play well in practice. Really just needs to step on the field and in a real game and get it done. And that's what people are buying into now, the hope. Because, let's face it, he's one of the few running backs left that you can have hope with because he hasn't done anything yet.
True. A couple more questions for you here. Kenyon Drake finally had a big game this past week, but he still got out-touched by, of all people, Frank Gore. It just makes no sense at all. How do you – I finally benched Kenyon Drake last week, and he goes off, of course, just of all things. But I'm not mad at my process there. It's just been so bad. What do you do with Kenyon Drake?
Well, if it's me and I'm holding Kenyon Drake, and I'm really not I'm not a big Kenyon Drake guy, and all preseason all we heard was how good Frank Gore looked, and they're going to get him involved, and that's all we've seen so far all years. They've been getting Frank Gore involved. You know what? If you can't beat out a 35-year-old running back, it may be time for you to hang him up too. He had a good week, but that wasn't really in the running game. He had a good week in the passing game, which is something we know, we've been saying all along they should be using him in, and they haven't been. So hopefully that's a change in the right direction. But if you're sitting on Kenyon Drake, and I know I've said this a lot already, but if you're sitting on Kenyon Drake right now, now's the time to sell.
Trade him. Yep. There's a lot of guys you can trade. You mentioned him, James Conner. There's a handful of running backs you could trade or trade for. You can make a lot of damage this week in the trade market. I think it's a good time to go try to do it. A couple things for you. So we talked Robby Anderson. We talked Mohamed Sanu, Keke Coutee.
Well, here's where we haven't talked. Can I interject one on? Look, it's not a name that people like and not a name that people think much about, but Ryan Grant is quietly in PPR leagues been double-digit scorers in 4 out of 5 weeks.
Yep.
So he's established himself with a pretty safe floor, but he also established himself. He doesn't have a high ceiling. He's not going to win you a game any week, but if you can count on double-digit points each and every week, then that's a guy that really is a nice play in that wide receiver 3 or in that flex spot, especially as we start to get into the bye weeks where 4 or 6 teams are on bye.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of fact that he is, behind Hilton, the second best receiver. Even when Hilton was on the field, he was still getting his shots. So he doesn't get affected by that, whereas Chester Rogers will. Once Hilton comes back, Chester Rogers folds back into the shadows, and we see him and Ryan Grant getting Hilton and Ryan Grant getting most of the work. So right now, people, they keep bypassing Ryan Grant, thinking, oh, he's nothing. But meanwhile, he's gotten you double-digit points at 4 out of 5 weeks.
No, I love that call. I think it's a great call. He's very, very reliable and consistent. I like consistent in my fantasy teams. That's something that's good to have. Any final thoughts? Any other final players? As we covered a lot of things. Any waiver wire guys we didn't mention that you might be targeting this week?
Well, you might have to look at Devontae Booker as much as I hate it. They finally got him involved in the passing game. Hopefully that trend continues because let's face it, the other guys are not pass receivers to that point. Booker is definitely a better pass receiver than they are. Not really somebody I'd spend a lot of money on, but I also don't think you have to spend a lot of money on. A lot of people aren't going to be grabbing at him. But, and it's really a flyer at this point to see if that kind of trend can continue going forward. Let's face it, Case Keenum, at least in my opinion, is not playing as good as I expected him to. And, at that point, he's not getting the ball to the wide receivers as much. He did it this past week only in garbage time. Before that, he was completely shut down. Both Sanders and Demaryius Thomas didn't do anything until the end when they were trying to fight back against his Jets team. He's just not playing very well. So I think we start to see more checkdowns from him as he starts to lose his confidence going down the field. And, with that, I think Booker starts to come into play. I'm not a big Booker guy either. I've never been a big Booker guy, but they're not using the other running backs as a receiving back at all. So if Booker takes that role, he could be very viable in a PPR league.
Interesting. I like where your head's at on that one. So that'll be good. Well, with that being said, we'll wrap things up tonight, Jim. You can find his work on Fighting Chance Fantasy. He's doing daily spots and shows over on FNTSY. He's on Twitter at FantasyTaz. Anything else I missed there, Jim?
No, that's about it right now. It seems to be taking all my time.
That's beautiful.
Doing 13 hours a week on the Fantasy Sports Network. And believe me, if you know me at all, if you see me at all, I have my notebooks everywhere. I have notes in all of them. And I take a ton of notes. I spend a lot of time working up for those 13 hours.
I love it. Yeah, I got stuff all over my desk here. My wife always goes, "Why don't you organize things?" I said, "It is organized. It is.
I know where everything is. As long as you don't touch it, we're good."
Yeah, exactly. It's very organized. But Jim, thanks for joining me tonight. Had a great time, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on. It was fun. Definitely. Always looking to talk football.
Excellent. Everybody, this was Bench with Bubba, episode 125 with Jim Day, recapping Week 5. Looking forward to Week 6. Catch you guys later.